From Interior Alaska's most trusted news source, this is the Fbx Evening News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Daryl Clark. Stephanie Woodard is on assignment. Our top story, the search for suspects in a fatal bar shooting continues in the interior. Today, a large group of residents attended a rally to help find answers for the family of the murder victim. Stephanie Woodard tells us more about the investigation and what the police are asking of the community.
The rally began at Tanana Chiefs Conference and ended in the Walgreens parking lot across from Rockin' Rodeo, where John Kaverlik Jr. was fatally shot.
This murder of John Kaverlik Jr., of course, is a terrible tragedy for our community.
The shooter remains on the loose in Fairbanks as police track down leads. Many say they're fearful because of the violence involved in the shooting.
Our community is on edge. We live in a small, tight-knit community, a caring community, and to have a murderer maybe in our community is scary. We live on edge.
Both the city mayor and chief of police walked in front of the crowd. Detectives say they are working to track down leads in the case just days after releasing footage of the alleged suspects.
If anybody needs to be rallied, we're doing all we can. It needs to be from the community. The community needs to think about what happened, search their heart and minds, and tell us who is involved. If it's their relative or a friend, somebody needs to come forward and drop a dime on who's involved.
Little detail has been made available, but witnesses say Kaverlik and a black man got into a fight that later escalated in the parking lot. It's been reported a group of men came to the parking lot in a vehicle and fatally shot Kaverlik outside.
A father and a husband who lost his life, and he was not armed, and somebody shot him. I mean, come on. Somebody out there is a coward, needs to come forward, and justice needs to be served.
In between chants,
"Justice for John! Justice for John!"
the community continued to plead with the public to come forward and identify the men shown in the footage.
There has to be somebody in the community here that know these folks. And I just hope and pray that they'll come forward.
One tip is all we need, and that's what's important.
If you have a tip, you can call Fairbanks Police anonymously at 450-6500. I'm Stephanie Woodard reporting.
The Fairbanks Police Department is also seeking the public's assistance in locating a woman who reportedly robbed a local Thai standby at gunpoint. Police say the robbery occurred yesterday in the 2600 block of Rewak Drive at the Simply Thai drive-thru. According to the victim, the perpetrator was a black woman between 5'2" and 5'4". She was wearing dark clothing with a bandana over her face. Authorities confirmed the woman made off with an undisclosed amount of cash and the worker was left unharmed. Now, the woman was able to escape through a wooded area near Sophie Plaza, and police are continuing their investigation.
The suspect in this case obviously is a danger. Broad daylight, committed a crime with an aggravating instrument, in this case a firearm. That is not something we can take lightly. And threatening another with the threat of harm is definitely a cause for concern.
The Fairbanks North Star Borough hosted a second town hall meeting on marijuana legalization last night at the Pioneer Park Civic Center. Elected officials from the cities of Fairbanks and North Pole joined Borough Mayor Luke Hopkins, assembly members, and staff at the head table. About 100 people attended for an update on zoning ordinances currently being crafted by the Hopkins administration. Preliminary mapping shows marijuana-related retail outlets will be located in borough industrial zones, with the largest area being in the Van Horn Road Industrial District. Areas in downtown Fairbanks and in North Pole would also be open for marijuana retail. However, there are several buffers centered around sensitive receptors like schools, playgrounds, and youth centers and public swimming pools. Borough Community Planning Director Christine Nelson says these buffers are designed to keep pot away from kids.
The number one and the primary one for us to deal with is the protection of children. And so that's what these buffers are about, is protecting those uses that are primarily related to children.
It seems to me that the future for legal marijuana is pretty good in Fairbanks. I can expect, with this kind of work going forward, that we can see a business where more and more people can enter the middle class.
Okay, when we come back, residents of the interior will have an opportunity this weekend to see the latest newborns at the UAF Large Animal Research Center. Also, the Borough and the U.S. Air Force at Eielson joined together today to sign a charter that would solidify the two as community partners. Those stories are next. Stay with us. And welcome back. United States Air Force and local officials inked an agreement today to solidify efforts between Eielson Air Force Base and community partners as part of the Air Force Community Partnership Agreement. Borough Mayor Luke Hopkins and Fairbanks City Mayor John Eberhardt joined the 354th Fighter Wing Commander Colonel Michael Winkler and other Eielson leaders in signing the charter. Through the collaboration, Eielson leadership hopes to develop partnerships to help absorb the impacts of budget cuts that have affected the Air Force for several years. In addition to the charter agreement, several individual agreements were signed. For instance, DoD jobs currently open on Eielson will now be posted to the borough's website, and the base field house will now be open to players of the Interior Baseball League for off-season training. The process began on the 1st of December. Colonel Winkler says the documents signed today represent about $100,000 in savings for the Air Force, adding that the partnership is just beginning.
What we're doing today is the first step of what's going to be a long process of continued community involvement. One of the things that Colonel Tejero mentioned was a 14 July meeting where we talk about the way ahead. Nothing is off the table as far as future expansion, so it's just a matter of what we can actually generate as far as ideas.
As we've sat around and just looked at low-hanging fruit, there's other opportunities to have the next layer up, and we can't see the top of that tree.
Governor Walker today praised the Department of Energy's approval of an LNG export license for North Slope natural gas. The conditional license allows Alaska to export LNG to non-free trade agreement countries. This will allow the sale of Alaska gas in the Asian markets. Department of Energy officials announced the license approval this morning in Anchorage. The license, which would allow exports of up to 2.5 billion cubic feet of natural gas a day for 30 years, is conditional on final regulatory approval of the project by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission.
The announcement today was very significant news. It's one more piece of putting the piece together of the puzzle, and it's a great opportunity for Alaska. I've enjoyed the working with each of the companies on the AK LNG as far as what they bring to the table. They bring a world-class experience and knowledge and background. I'm anxious for us to be a full partner at the table. We're working on that to make sure that that happens.
The University of Alaska Fairbanks Large Animal Research Station will host its annual Birthday Bash open house to welcome the spring calves Saturday, May 30th from noon to 5 p.m. The free public event will include children's activities, animal viewing, activities from Camp Habitat and Fairbanks Children's Museum. This spring, Lars welcomed 11 reindeer calves and 2 muskox calves, with more on the way. The station will continue its tradition of asking the public to suggest names for the calves. The Bureau of Land Management today published a notice in the Federal Register for nominations on available tracts to be considered for inclusion in the BLM's fall 2015 oil and gas lease sale in the National Petroleum Reserve here in Alaska. Interested parties may nominate or comment on available tracts. The Federal Register notice is the first step in the process leading up to the next oil and gas lease sale, which is tentatively scheduled for the fall of 2015. All right, Joe Cook is in Anchorage covering state championship soccer and track, but Mike Fussell is here to keep you up to date on what's going on in Fairbanks sports, including the regional high school baseball tournament. Stay tuned.
Welcome back, Interior Alaska. I'm Mike Fussell filling in for Joe Cook, who is in Anchorage covering the state soccer and track and field competitions. We'll have more on that in just a little bit, but first we stay in town for some high school softball. The West Valley Wolfpack hosted the Lathrop Malamute softball team yesterday night at the South Davis Fields. The crosstown rivalry proved to be a defensive battle. Wolfpack pitcher Celeste Jensen secured the 11 strikeouts from the mound. She would go on to throw a no-hitter and was just one walk away from a perfect game. The on-point pitching would keep the Malamutes from getting on the scoreboard, and it would allow West Valley to tally a number of unanswered points for a 6-0 win. West Valley pitcher Celeste Jensen says solid fielding support gave her confidence in the circle.
I was hitting my spots really well, and my change-ups were doing pretty good today, so that's most of it. It feels really good. I know even if I do walk them, or even if they do hit my teams back there, they did really good getting all the outs that I wasn't able to.
And the first ever Mid-Alaska Conference baseball tournament is now in full swing. The top-seeded Lathrop Malamutes took on the Monroe Catholic Rams yesterday afternoon at Groudon Field. From the start, it was all Malamutes. Lathrop would go on to win it 17-0. Then North Pole faced number 2 seed West Valley in what would turn out to be an offensive shootout. West Valley wins it 22-15. With the wins, both West Valley and Lathrop move one step closer to securing a MAC championship and a spot in the state tournament. And the Alaska High School State Track and Field Meet is just a day away. Local athletes who advanced from the regional tournament are now preparing for the big stage. And our KTVF sports team has a closer look.
Athletes from across the interior are gearing up for the ASAA Track and Field State Meet. Finals begin on Friday with a number of field events like shot put and long jump. Runners will also be hitting the track tomorrow for the biggest races of the year. Lathrop's Jaslyn Davis will be running sprint races, which she has been competitive in throughout her high school seasons. Davis says she has faced some adversity throughout the year, but is confident going into states.
Since I've been having shin splints basically all season, been trying to work on that as well. But getting the times I am this year, I'm proud of. Pretty confident since all we've been doing is working on our form and working on our drive and things to better us. So feeling good going into state.
Another Lathrop standout, Devin Millington, who will be running the hurdles, says having a very competitive team has made him a better individual athlete.
You know, Jared being out in front of me all season was kind of a little bit of a more drive thing, but it was nice. I think my form's pretty solid. I've been working on it all year and got it down pretty well, so as far as form goes, I think I'll be all right.
Lathrop took second place overall at last year's state meet. Malamutes head coach Milo Griffin says he's doing his best to calm nerves before the team steps onto the big stage.
Well, we're trying to make it like a regular meet for us. It's just go down and see how you did in the year, see how much you've improved, and enjoy the trip down, enjoy competing with the best in the state. And you can't lose. It's not a lose for anybody, because once you qualify for state, you're one of the top athletes in the state. So that's what we're approaching it for.
And across town, West Valley's Charles Suddeth is heading to the tournament to defend his 100 and 200 meter titles. He will also be running relays for the Wolfpack. Suddeth says the team's success is the sum of hard work from the entire season.
I've just been telling them if we work hard all year and work on our handoffs, then nobody's going to be able to beat us because we have a lot of talent on the team already. So if we work hard, then that'll just push us to the next level. Last year I would stretch, but I wouldn't do everything I needed to do to get a consistent time, but this year that's what I've been doing.
Events run through Saturday evening at Diamond High School in Anchorage.
The Alaska Nanook hockey team has officially announced their latest recruiting class. The coaching staff is welcoming 7 new players to the team. Additions include 4 forwards, 2 defensemen, and a goalie. Jesse Jenks is ranked as one of the top goaltenders in Western Canada. In his age group, he helped his former team rise to the semifinals at the World Junior A Challenge. Nicholas Koberstein will be joining the Alaska defenseman. He's had a successful run with the Olds Grizzlies after being drafted by the Montreal Canadiens in the 5th round of the 2014 NHL entry draft. And Chad Staley was the top scorer in the BCHL during the 2013-2014 season with 29 goals. And that about brings us to the buzzer for sports tonight. Your full weather forecast is coming up next. Thanks for checking in and have a good evening.
And welcome back to the weather segment of our broadcast. Mike Schultz is a little under the weather, so to speak, no pun intended. So we're going to go ahead and take care of your forecast by starting with the almanac for the day. As you can see, our high today, 59 degrees. A high of 64 and a low of 46 was the deal of the day. The record high was set in 1947, 90 degrees in May. Could you believe that? Record low below freezing, 30, it set in 1934. Sun rose this morning at 3:46 a.m., won't set until 11:55, giving us a total of 20 hours and 9 minutes of daylight. That's a gain of about 6 from yesterday. Winds are out of the east, and the barometer is set at 30.24. Let's continue and take a look at conditions across the state today. As you can see in the interior, we did have that rain, and we may have a trickle or two overnight, but it should be clearing up. More about that later. As you can see up north, overcast conditions. Barrow 35 today. Fort Yukon 61 with overcast conditions. And then on the west coast, Nome looking fairly partly sunny, partly cloudy, either way you want to say it. And that is a high of 46 today. And in the Anchorage Bowl area, Anchorage 61 degrees, Kodiak 55, Panhandle, Juneau in the 70s. That's warm for them. Ketchikan 61 degrees. All in all, pretty nice all over the state. Let's go ahead and zoom on down, slide down, there we go, and take a look at the high temperatures across the lower 48. Seattle, 82 degrees in May. Usually it's raining this time of year, so great conditions for them. A little further south in California, San Francisco checking in with 62. The hot spots, Phoenix 98 and Vegas 97 degrees. Whew! And yes, in the central and southern states, more rain, unfortunately. They don't need any. Remember earlier this year we were talking about the severe drought Texas was having. Well, no longer is the case when they're dealing with flash flooding and unfortunately the loss of some lives down there too as well. That system actually went well over into the Gulf states as well. New Orleans checking in with 89 degrees, but also raining. The rain continues even in northern parts of Florida and Miami as well, checking in at 87 degrees. Across the Northeast, pretty nice. New York 84 and DC 92. Wow, that's a scorcher. Unfortunately, those rains are not expected to taper off anytime soon for those being affected in the central and southern parts of the United States. So unfortunately, all we can do is hope for drier weather for them. All right, let's go ahead and go back to Alaska and check out tomorrow's forecast. We start up north. Chance of rain in Barrow and also Nome. Rain showers are expected in Fort Yukon. 68 degrees projected for Fort Yukon tomorrow. Let's take a look here in the interior. We'll have more detail in just a moment, but right now, abundant sunshine will return for Fairbanks, Healy, and also the Delta area. Temperatures in the low 70s. Let's go ahead now and take a look at the Panhandle. Juneau, 75 degrees. Warm weather continues for them. Even Ketchikan catching some of that action. Highs in the upper 60s projected for them as well. Let's go opposite now and take a look at the southwest. Wind and rain for Cold Bay, partly cloudy for Kodiak, and of course Bethel will be seeing some cloudy skies. Cold Bay only reaching 49 degrees, but Bethel and Kodiak in the 60s. Quickly now, we'll take a look at the Anchorage Bowl area and take a look. Mostly sunny across the region for them too. Highs in the mid to upper 60s. Okay, now we are actually going to go ahead and take a look at one of our many features over the course of the summer, the fishing conditions. That's right. Brought to you by LifeMed Alaska. Thank you for your sponsorship. Take a look first at Valdez. Halibut fishing really quiet right now, and of course no salmon yet. They haven't started their run yet. Kenai River is closed for now. The Russian River opens for reds June 11th, so write that down on your calendar. That's when it's first expected opening for them. Matanuska Valley, king salmon will increase in all rivers over the coming days into the weekend, so that should be nice there if you got to get your fish on. Once again, thanks a lot to LifeMed Alaska for our fishing conditions report. Okay, moving on. Let's go ahead and take a look at our short-range forecast for overnight tonight. Low expected in the mid-40s, scattered showers tapering off by morning. And speaking of morning, tomorrow, 71 degrees, more sunshine, a little warmer than it was today. And of course, taking a look at our long range, and this is really important, through the weekend, temperatures in the low 70s. It'll get cooler by the start of the work week, but temperatures will rebound by Wednesday in the lower to mid 70s as well. Lows in the 40s, upper 40s, so that's good for that right now. And I tell you what, Mike, it's good conditions. This is your first summer here, so what are you thinking?
Today was a little gloomy, but it looks like things are going to be getting a little more sunny out there.
And unfortunately, the rain that we did receive, it wasn't enough. It really wasn't that penetrating soak. Right. So it's still tinderbox conditions out there. So we just want a word of caution to, make sure that you don't start any wildfires or anything else like that until we can get a sizable amount of rain. But
exactly.
But not good for sports today. But
no.
Joe's down in Anchorage. That's got to be awesome.
It looked like the weather was treating him all right down there, but there's still some baseball, softball going on up here, so whole different element to deal with out there.
Oh yeah, I would imagine. And you know what? I played in the rain growing up. The kids can too if there's a shower or two.
Exactly.
But so far, that's not going to happen for tomorrow. So we should see a little bit better weather for tomorrow. Okay, that will wrap up this edition of the broadcast. We're glad you could join us.
Tonight on NBC Nightly News, a former Republican Speaker of the House has been indicted on federal charges. That's up next with Lester Holt.
All right, you can join us here 6 days a week at 6 and 11 or online anytime, webcenter11.com.
And from all of us here at the News Center, have a good night.